Welcome to the Thyroidless Life podcast with me, Dr. Rebecca Warren. This podcast is for you if you've been diagnosed with a thyroid disorder, think you might have a thyroid disorder, or healing after thyroidectomy. I'm doing this podcast because of my own personal health journey of being diagnosed with thyroid cancer, getting my thyroid cut out, getting high-dose radiation, and being left with no answers when my health started to deteriorate quickly. It wasn't until I drew a line in the sand that my health transformed, and now I've dedicated my life to sharing this information so others don't have to go down that same path. My hope is that you never feel alone on your health journey and that you understand how incredible your body is, that it's not working against you, it's working with you, and it wants to be well. So before we go into today's episode, just a reminder about my Thyroid Inner Circle community membership. This is what I had always envisioned when I first started working with women, is this community of women that are coming together and really being empowered and equipped on their bodies, on their health, and how to get themselves better. And I say this over and over again, but it was what I wish I had when I started off in this journey. In this community, you're going to get teachings, Q&A, lab deep dives, resets, discounts on supplements, discounts on testing, really to make it possible for you to get better each year and not be lost about questions and things that can come up. So if you love my podcast, if you love my content and you want to go deeper and take your health to the next level, check out my Thyroid Inner Circle membership. Doors are open right now. You can go to thyroidinnercircle.com. I will also put a link in the show notes, and I cannot wait to see you guys in there. All right, so we're in part 2 of Healing After Thyroidectomy Q&A. Now, let's go ahead and jump right in. These questions are from my Healing After Thyroidectomy Facebook group. And the first question I have here, and I'm hoping I did not answer this already, but I know I've talked about this because this really changed things for quite a few women that I was working with. And the question one, when is the best time to get blood work done in terms of timing of medication ingestion? I've experimented with this and not on purpose. I've just had people show up with really crazy blood work, and I've had them go get blood work again. And every time after they get blood work, they do it my way and the results are completely different. And they feel like they can I've done this with both men and women. I used to work with men back in the past. I've done it with women. And this goes for people without a thyroid, partial thyroid, or even with thyroid. It's for anyone that might be using thyroid medication or thyroid glands. Now, my recommendations for the women that work with me is to get blood work done in the morning before any supplements, before thyroid meds. Take your thyroid meds with you, go early, get the lab work done, and then take your meds afterwards. I like there to be 12 to 16 hours of not having to take your thyroid meds before you go to get your blood work done. And the reason why is because I see a spike from your body when you took the thyroid meds, your body processing the thyroid meds in circulation. And when you wait after that processing time, your results are different. There's also a study that looks at the spikes of T4 and T3. T4 is T3 is a couple of hours, T4 is a little bit longer, but there is this kind of artificial spike that happens when you take your thyroid meds. I have heard that some medical doctors, the reasoning why they don't tell you not to take it is because they want to do blood work with you having just taken the thyroid meds. But what I have seen over and over and over again is that it's more aligned with how you're feeling and what you're experiencing if you take the meds after the blood work, if you allow there to be a big break. And let me give you an example. What I tend to hear a lot of is my doctor says I am on a lot of thyroid meds or my levels are on the high end, but I feel X, Y, and Z. I feel tired. I feel like I have hypothyroid symptoms. Like I don't understand what's going on. I had someone, I've shared this story before, who wanted to try whole thyroid, like natural desiccated thyroid hormone, and they put her on it for a few months. She was still full of symptoms, but the doctors were like, it looks like you have enough. Your TSH is low, your T4 is high. and couldn't figure out what was going on, came to see me. I thought the labs looked crazy, had to redo the labs. And then it really showed what happened was that after the body had processed that T4, T3, what was actually happening is she wasn't on enough meds. Her baseline was actually lower. So working on upping that makes a big difference in how she was feeling, the fatigue, the brain fog, and all of that. I see it over and over and over again. So my recommendation is to get blood work done, especially if there are symptoms, right? Now, I want to give a disclaimer, guys. I have seen this happen a lot. If you're having symptoms, it is possible that you could be on the right of thyroid hormones and there's something else that's wrong. But before you can even consider that, especially if you have a thyroid issue, you've been on thyroid meds long-term, or you've had your thyroid removed, before you can consider all these other possibilities like low iron or low B vitamins, those types of things, you got to make sure you have the right amount of thyroid hormones in your body. So testing appropriately is really, really important. And I know I hear it all the time. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Literally just happened last week in a consultation. So make sure you do it in the morning, give yourself that break, and then look at the difference between your labs, and you'll probably see it align with how you're feeling. So that's my recommendation. That's what I've seen through the years. Now, did you get an ultrasound on your kids or siblings' thyroid after finding out you had cancer? Whew, okay. I'm hoping to get some other doctors and researchers on the podcast to dive into this further, because I think it's really important to talk about the thyroid cancer situation. So this is the interesting thing. This is a layered question, right? Because when it comes down to it, over 90% of nodules are going to be benign. They're not going to be problematic. Around the same amount you're going to see, even if you had thyroid cancer, like if you had the papillary carcinoma, that a majority of those cases won't turn into anything beyond it being a papillary carcinoma. Now, I say this is such a bigger and deeper conversation because internationally, and especially coming out of Japan, the research that's come out of Japan, and actually it's being done here too by an incredible doctor. And I say incredible because it needs to be done. But they've been doing studies on active surveillance, meaning you have this diagnosis, you check off some things, make sure it's not anything aggressive. But a majority of cases in Japan, they do active surveillance, which means they find this carcinoma and they leave it there. One of the big things they're looking at as well is the growth. So if it's very, very, very slow growth, you can be a really, really good candidate. Looking at lymph node involvement, you can be a really, really good candidate. Another thing that's really interesting is if it's not involved in the lymph node. Let me make sure I clarify that. There's some things that, doctors can look at to see if you're a good candidate for active surveillance. But what we're seeing, again, I want to reiterate, with the information coming out of Japan, with the information that's coming out, that's being done here now, is that a majority of thyroid cancer cases are good candidates for active surveillance. And doctors in America are just more hesitant to do that and let me tell you this is what I believe. I've seen it in my own process, and I've seen it as I'm listening to different doctors and researchers share their work. We are more just cut happy. We are cutting out thyroids, cutting them out, and just saying, well, we cut it out. It's good to go. That's it. When it's completely unnecessary to be so aggressive right now. It's hard to have that conversation because when you hear the C word, you automatically go into fight or flight, right? You're in survival mode, but you have to calm down and slow down and understand, if you haven't had it cut out, that there's a possibility that you might not need to get it cut out. But that being said, another thing I wanted to add is there was a study that came out of Finland. And what was really, really interesting is they have really great autopsy records there. And what they found is that about, I think it was around 35% of the population that had died had thyroid nodules, but had not died because of a thyroid cancer or a thyroid issue. And that's mind blowing. The fact is, especially for women, a majority of women are going to have thyroid nodules. You are. A lot of them are going to be thyroid carcinoma as they classify it, but it's not the same thing as a lot of other different types of cancers. And that's really important to understand. So for me, no, no one else got checked in my family. My kids are not getting ultrasounds in that case. That's another conversation that a lot of doctors are having, is that because we're looking more. Oh, that's a big one. Because we're looking more, because we're searching, we're finding and we're diagnosing and we're cutting out for things that are complete, like you don't need to do that for. We're finding more micro papillary carcinomas, tiny carcinomas on the thyroid. And again, when you hear carcinoma, it's this idea that you got to go out, cut it out, do all these things, which now we're finding out does not have to be a case. Does not. So no, I'm not concerned about that with my kids. Another thing that's really interesting is Dr. Nikiforov. I was listening to him speak, and he's done a lot of work on the genetic side of like thyroid cancers. And I thought it was really interesting that he talked about the predominant genetic kind of mutation that's happening is very much so carcinogenic from an environmental factor. And so the truth is there are a lot more environmental toxins. And so let me take a step back. There's more environmental toxins that are affecting gene expression, that are affecting the thyroid nodules. And so it's not so much, it's just genetics. That's not how it is. For a majority of diseases, 95% is not going to be genes, it's going to be environmental. So the best thing that I can do, which I do work on a lot, is I'm very much so aware of the foods that go into my children's body, the toxins they're exposed to. I cannot control everything. I cannot control the water they drink. If they're out and about, for some reason, my kids are obsessed with water fountains. They're probably drinking a lot of halogens there. I can't control everything, but I can control in my home. I can control the toxins in my home, the types of foods that we're eating. I can control the things that they're exposed to here. And that's what I do. And I think that's going to have a bigger impact than just doing all these ultrasounds over and over again, is influencing your family's environment, influencing the things you can control. So that is my course of action with my children. I will say this as well. I was not the healthiest kid. I had a lot of strep growing up. I was exposed to a lot of antibiotics. My gut was a wreck. I was, overweight for, different seasons of being a child. So there was all these things that were probably regarded as normal in my doctor's office that was not normal. I had a gallbladder attack when I was 16 years old. That should have been a big red flag, right? So I don't do that. I also don't live in fear. And I hope that you don't live in fear either. The more information you're exposed to, the more data you can see, the more you can know, okay, this is what we know. We know that active surveillance, we know that a lot of these, tumors are benign, and even the cancerous ones are not going to be aggressive, are not going to lead to things. And there's many people that have it and die and don't even know. That's kind of like my thought process around it. That's what I'm really diving into the research, and I'm excited to share more with you guys about that. And hopefully we can get some doctors here to share that information so that you can keep on being empowered about all of this, about this conversation. Because what's being told in doctors' offices, what I'm hearing over and over again, is very, very different than what I'm seeing a lot of these researchers and doctors talking about and the work that they're doing. So that's the answer to that question. Next question, slow digestion, low energy. Okay. So I've said this, and I'm going to keep saying it over and over and over again. I think it's really important to understand that the first place to look, if you've had your thyroid removed, if you're having all these kind of issues, is looking at your thyroid levels. I hear a lot of times people post-thyroidectomy, that are really, really struggling. And a majority of those people post-thyroidectomy are struggling unnecessarily. It happened to me, right? And the reason why you're struggling unnecessarily is because you're not on the right thyroid hormones, right? You've got to remember that T3 is the foot to the pedal, the gas pedal. You are making things go in your body. It is associated with energy production. All your cells need it. All your tissue needs it. But when you don't have enough, and let me explain, not having enough is not just being out of range. Not having enough can be on the low end of the range. Well, Dr. Rebecca, how do I know if that applies to me? Well, are you on the low end of the range? And are you also having symptoms? That's boom right there, right? So this slow digestion, low energy, before you start going after things here and there, make sure that you are optimal. Make sure you check out my podcast episode about optimal labs. It's very, very important that your labs are optimal, because I will tell you this, digestive issues, slow digestion, gallbladder, acid reflux, bloating are all common symptoms I see from people that are hypothyroid or are low end on the range thyroid, hypothyroid. Okay. So that's really, really, I mean, you come in to see me, you say, I got slow digestion, I have low energy. I'm going to say, let me see your labs right now and like your full wellness panel, and let me see the last 2 years. I'm looking at that first. Now, let's say that your labs are optimal for you. Like you're in the functional ranges, you're good, you're high. Those are good. Well, slow digestion, low energy. The next step is to look at the gut. Now, I love stool testing. I love gut testing. Is it going to be 100% accurate always? No, because we're just scratching the surface when it comes to the gut and the microbiome. However, if you prep properly leading up to that stool test, we have more chances of uncovering pathogens or things that are causing some issues. We can look at that test. We can see, is there a diversity issue? We can look at it and see maybe things aren't showing up on the test, but because you have X, Y, and Z, that means you probably have this on this other end, right? So slow digestion, I'm looking at slowing down, not moving things. I'm going to look at T3. If it's not that, I'm thinking small intestinal bowel overgrowth, maybe some parasites. That's some things that can really affect the movement of digestion. Now, I don't think it's a good idea to just go in and just do these parasite cleanses and just be super restrictive. Like if you think you have small intestinal bowel overgrowth, FODMAP, like doing a low FODMAP diet can make you feel better. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take care of the problem. I'm not a huge proponent of you jumping in and just killing stuff in your gut without guidance from a practitioner. And when I say practitioner, I'm not talking about medical doctor. 99% of them don't even know how to address this in a safe way that's not going to just wreak havoc, right? So going with a practitioner, and there are some medical doctors that do, there's some functional medical doctors, but I think the best approach to go about this is to start with increasing the diversity of bacteria in your gut. That's what you can do, right? If you have slow digestion, start with increasing the diversity of your gut. How can you do that? You can do that by increasing your fermented foods. Now, fermented foods include things like kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles. Now, kombucha is a fermented food, but I'm not telling you to go out and drink a whole bottle of kombucha in one sitting. You should do a couple of ounces at once, not a whole bottle, right? So start eating a lot more fermented foods, a lot of prebiotic-rich foods, fibrous foods. You can also increase your meat. And this is the cool thing is that when I've worked with, women in the past, I needed to increase their diversity. I am a huge proponent of changing things up. So go for a period of time where you're eating all this high fermented food, high prebiotic rich foods. Then take a period of time where you're going like in a ketosis and doing higher amounts of meat and fat. changing these things up is really great because it's feeding different bacteria, it's supporting different bacteria. Now, if you want to go out and get a capsule, I'll put a link to my shop. I really, really love Megaspore. I like bacillus strands types of probiotics because they survive the digestive tract. They're very intuitive with the environment of your gut. I see really great results with that. So if you're like, okay, I'll do fermented foods, but I want to start moving in the right direction. I want to get on something. I do great. I see great results with that as an everyday type of probiotic. So that's what I highly, highly recommend. I also would encourage utilizing stuff that will protect the barrier, things like ion guts. I think that's what ion biome. They don't call it ion gut, ion biome. I will link it so you guys know what I'm talking about in the show notes. And things like L-glutamine, which can be a powder. It's an amino acid that's really, really great at supporting and protecting your gut lining. Start there. You guys want to go and do parasite cleanses. You guys want to go out and do all these like cleanses and gallbladder things and all this. Start with supporting the richness of diversity in your gut microbiome every single day, multiple times a day. Work on supporting that gut lining and avoiding as much genetically modified foods that are sprayed with glyphosate because those are gut disruptors. Really, really important. Another thing to be aware of as a woman, if you are on birth control, that can cause some digestive issues, especially with the gut lining and absorption of nutrients. So just be aware of that. Start there. And I cannot tell you how important this is and how much of an impact. Because even if you have to, let's say, address the small intestinal bowel overgrowth, even if you have to like go after the parasites, or maybe there's a bacterial infection like H. pylori, having a good, diverse, rich gut microbiome is going to be important to make sure those things don't come back. We have amazing herbs. We have amazing protocols that can really eliminate a lot of these pathogens, but nothing's going to compare to your body's own innate immune system, the own innate, power within the gut to try to keep things in check, right? So start there. Start with the meds, make sure your hormones are the levels are good on paper, and then you can lead to increasing diversity. And if you need to go deeper, you're like, wait a minute, these two things didn't help, then, reach out, join my membership group, and we can go even deeper according to what's going on with you. Low energy, right there, like I said, right back to that. Thyroid levels, making sure they're optimal for you within those functional ranges. And then once you get on the right amount of meds, your hormones look good, then you can check your adrenals. Now, how do you check your cortisol levels? The best way to test it, I'm going to put it in the show notes as well, is a saliva test throughout the day, a cortisol awakening response test. You take it in the morning and then all day. And then if you wake up through the night, you test then as well. And that's going to give you a most accurate picture of what's going on with your cortisol levels. But again, I feel like I'm repeating myself. I don't think it would be worth your money investment to do that test if your labs are off or if you're not on the right or proper thyroid med for you. All right, let's go ahead and here. I had a total thyroidectomy in 2018 due to papillary thyroid cancer. It had a domino effect on all of my other systems, tanked adrenals, cortisol, testosterone, and I also went through menopause. How do I increase my cortisol level and help my adrenal fatigue? Thank you. Oof. Okay. Now we have 2 different teaching sessions where I go deep into this in my Thyroid Inner Circle group. Make sure you check that out. If the doors are open, make sure to join it. If they're not, join the wait list for when they open again. Because we talk about this a lot within my membership group. Now, yeah, I can see that having a domino effect, but I want to go back again. I think the biggest issue is that doctors treat those without a thyroid like those that have a thyroid. And I truly believe there are way, way, way too many post-thyroidectomy patients that are not on the right amount of hormones, that are not being tested for their full labs. And that is unnecessary suffering. Plain and simple. It's just unnecessary. So before, we can start on all of this, and I'm going to actually talk about the connection of the cortisol and the adrenal and testosterone. I think it's really important you've got to be knowledgeable. I'm not asking you to be as knowledgeable as me. Probably not going to happen. I've got almost 2 decades worth of experience in this, looking at articles and studies, listening to doctors, even experiencing it myself. That's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you to be aware. I'm asking you to look at your labs, look at the numbers. Where are they? Where were they? Do you have the labs that I am telling you need to get, right? Do you have those labs? Where are you there? Do you have symptoms? Which you do. You've got to be aware. We have to correct this issue with too many of you guys not being either on the right type of med, whether it's T4 only, T4, T3, synthetic, if it's natural desiccated. We also have to make sure you're getting on the right amount. And the truth is, you are your own best advocate. You are the only one that's going to care as much about how you're feeling, how you're functioning, how you're healing. You are the only one. You're the only one that can ask the right questions that's going to help you get well. And if you're having symptoms, that should be proof enough for you, right? Number one, make sure you're getting your full panel, making sure they're in optimal functional ranges, making sure you notice a change. You will notice a change. I get people that ask me like, well, what does that mean? I get people that have their thyroid meds that change and they still feel tired. But what do you mean? You will know. There might be clarity in your mind. You might feel like your memory's getting better. Your brain fog isn't as bad. You're not forgetting your keys or forgetting to lock the door. You might notice that you finally have lost a pound or 2. You will notice a change once you start moving in the right direction. First steps first. Now, about this whole menopause, like tanked adrenals, cortisol, testosterone, going through menopause and adrenal fatigue. The one thing we don't talk about enough is how when we go into menopause as women, we are primarily 100% dependent on our adrenals for not just cortisol and a few other hormones, but especially for our sex hormones in menopause. So in menopause, it's not that you're not making hormones, you're making the amount that you're supposed to be making. Menopause isn't a disease. It's not this dysfunctional thing like our bodies are messing up. That's how it's talked about so often. Menopause is a change of season in a woman's life. It's a conservation of energy, no more periods, no more ovulation. It should be a beautiful new season that we go through, but women are left to suffer. And the reason why is that a lot of times we have underlying hormone issues, whether it's sex hormones, thyroid hormones, even adrenal hormones that don't get addressed. And then when we transition into menopause, now we're dependent on, the adrenals to create DHEA. DHEA leads to testosterone. Testosterone aromatizes to estrogen. And then progesterone also comes from the adrenals. But we have literally exhausted this system. Now, I'm not saying that the adrenals are the problem for you, because that's a diagnosable medical issue. What I'm saying is that hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis is dysregulated. That is a big deal. That same axis, the hypothalamus pituitary thyroid, and then like the hypothalamus pituitary ovarian axis, it's that same system, right? So what ends up happening is that for so many women, you're running on fumes, you're running off of high cortisol because your thyroid has been suboptimal, because your sex hormones have been all out of whack. You are coming from a place of survival, of sympathetic fight or flight for months, years, decades on and off, right? So then when you go into this menopause where you need a good HPA access, it's all dysregulated. So you're seeing a decrease of DHEA, you're seeing a decrease of testosterone. Your cortisol might either be too high or might be too low. It's all dysregulated. So how to increase my cortisol levels? Do you need to increase your cortisol levels? Get a cortisol awakening response test. Test it. But first, make sure your thyroid meds are right. Your labs are set, right? Like I just said. but test it. Because if you go out and take, like, let's say, because one of the things that can help low cortisol levels is adrenal glands. Fantastic. But if you're not actually low, that can make you feel like crap. If you're trying to increase when you're actually too high, like there's different things that we can look at. We can look at, are you making enough? Are you releasing enough? Are you not releasing enough? Is it that you have little at the tissue or too much at the tissue? Is it that you're inactivating it too much? There's different areas that we can look at, and depending on what's going on in that area, you can supplement to your specific needs. That being said, I love supplements. I love me some supplements. I will say this. I would say 50%, if not more, of resetting your HPA axis will be lifestyle related, not supplement related. Now, supplements take it to the next level. You can see changes much quicker, and you can see yourself calm or sleep better, different things like that. But you're not going to out supplement the lifestyle. So let's talk about that, because that's where you should start. What should you be doing to reset your cortisol levels throughout the day? Number one, when you wake up, get sunlight, period. Now, if you're waking up in the dark, wake up, turn on all the overhead lights, make it as bright as possible. Go about your day. Then when the sun is out, go out and get sunlight 10 to 30 minutes. I love for the women that I work with to go out for a walk in the morning and go out for a walk in the evening. So important. Get sunlight in the morning before 9:30, 10 a.m. Get sunlight in the middle of your day, and then get sunlight in the evening. What? Sunlight? Like, what are you talking about, Dr. Rebecca? Listen, it's not that sunlight is healing you. It's not that it alone is going to do the system. Is that you were created to be exposed to sunlight at different light spectrums, at different angles throughout the day, to signal to your body when to release, when to decrease, and when to prepare for bed. Okay. I can go into this much deeper, but we do that in my membership group. What you have to understand is that if you're not signaling to your body, like that exposure to sunlight has such a significant effect on your hormones and when you get ready for sleep, which is going to be really important for resetting this HPA dysregulation, right? Get sunlight in the morning, sunlight middle of the day. I'm not telling you to sunbathe, right? I'm telling you just go out. You don't have to look at the sun directly. Just walk outside, take a break from whatever you're doing, and then do it in the evening as well. Because as the sun's setting, it has different effects on your hormones than the sun that's rising. Do that first of all. Number two, go outside barefoot. Listen, guys, I love to biohack. I want to know what to buy to do X, Y, and Z. And when I started looking into this years ago, I'm like, oh my gosh, going outside barefoot, like that just sounds so hippy dippy. But we are starting to see that the charges, the ionic charges within the earth and how our body responds to it is essential for our living. I want to go back and say this again. I'm not telling you that going out, putting your bare feet on the earth is the end all healing thing. What I'm telling you is that you were created to be barefoot outside. And because we're created for that and you are lacking that, that's going to contribute to more and more dysregulation, especially when it comes to your cortisol levels. So what does that mean? Go out in the morning, get that sunlight, get some time barefoot. In the middle of the day, get some sunlight, get some time barefoot in the evening as well. I will tell you this, the women that I've coached in the past that have done this consistently, they feel a difference over a few weeks. And it's wild to think that sunlight, something like sunlight and going outside barefoot could have such a significant impact on your cortisol levels to the point where it influences how you feel and function. But it is, and it's powerful and you must do it. Now, in the evening, I highly recommend a few things to start preparing you for good, deep sleep. Is that in the evening, what you want to do is you want to dim the lights. You don't want overhead lights. Think about it this way. As the sun is setting, you're getting sunlight from a certain angle, right? So what you want to do is you want to kind of mimic that in your home. Use as many lamps as possible and limit overhead lights, okay? When you want to start getting ready for bed, let me go ahead and tell you this. I want you to get good sleep. And a lot of you guys are like, no, Dr. Rebecca, you don't understand. I can like pass out. I will fall asleep quickly. No, I hate to break it to you. For a lot of you guys, you're falling asleep because you're hypothyroid. You're like, ugh, your body's like exhausted. That doesn't mean you're necessarily getting deep restorative sleep. And a lot of you guys will know that because you can wake up in the morning. You don't feel fully rested. You might need a nap the next day. There's red flags that show you that you're not getting that deep restorative sleep. Another red flag is if you're waking up between 2 and 4 a.m., you're waking up, tossing and turning in bed, or you're waking up to go pee. All of those things are signs that you probably have some thyroid going on, some cortisol going on. But another thing that I want you to make sure that you do is that you have to give there has to be enough time between your last meal and when you go to bed. And in the past, I used to say 2 to 3 hours. I'm much more strict on this. Give your body 3 to 4 hours between your last meal and when you go to bed. You do not want to wake up the digestive system, wake up organs that should be slowing down and shutting down in preparation for sleep, especially in preparation for hormones to get into deep sleep. So you want to make sure that you're allowing that 3 to 4 hour period between your last meal and when you go to sleep. I want to say this too. I said earlier on slow digestion, I wanted to say this, and I'm going to give it as a little thing that I do here as well. Sometimes I have women that just like moms that have kids that do baseball late, or their husband comes home late, they want to have a meal together. If that has to happen, I do suggest supplementing with some digestive enzymes. Slow digestion, you're not properly digesting your food, utilizing digestive enzymes. I will also link that in the show notes. Can be really helpful. Utilizing bitters after a meal can help a lot with digestion. But if you're going to have that later meal, take some digestive enzymes to kind of support that. But you should overall be avoiding that. Okay, avoiding that. And then when it's time for sleep, now blue light blocking glasses have been really popular, but what you want to do with blue light blocking glasses, especially in the evening, you actually want the amber tinted lenses, not the cool looking ones that are kind of like bluish tinted, like you kind of like, they look like my glasses. If you're watching this video, you want them to be orange tinted, the amber tinted at night. You want it to be significantly tinted to block out that type of light. Now, the one thing that is kind of left out of this whole like blocking blue light conversation is, well, is it just the blue light, or is it that we're doing a lot of stimulating things in the evening when we should be relaxing and resting and slowing down? And that's something to take in consideration. If you're on your phone and scrolling and you're just being bombarded by news or bombarded by all these different things, that's a lot of stimulation for your brain. So even if you've got your phone on like the amber mode, all that stimulation that we are not meant to be exposed to, all these stories, all these people on a regular basis, now you're being exposed to it before bed, can be really detrimental. I also recommend when you're ready to go to sleep, you got to decrease the temperature in your home. We know this. We know you get a deeper sleep. It creates a better environment for deeper sleep if you're going from like about 65, 67 degrees in your room. I know, don't hate me. I know some of your partners are going to hate me for saying that. And that's just how it is. You got to get some cool temperatures, get under those covers and block out any light and even stimulation. I have the women that I work with unplug their Wi-Fi routers. Do it. You can put it on a timer if you want, but unplug, remove the phone away from your bedside, go old school, get an alarm clock, create an environment so that you're best rested. So that is just kind of like a quick little, we could do more according to where you're at, according to what your cortisol testing, your CAR test shows, but that's a place where you can start today. All right. So going right back here, the final question we have for this part of the Q&A, Best way to reduce face puffiness, moon phase caused by dysfunctional thyroid and general puffiness throughout the entire body due to thyroid not working well, had a partial thyroidectomy, and meds aren't making a difference and haven't worked. 3+ years of trying various thyroid meds, combinations, and doses. Tried natural desiccated thyroid, ... Ooh, okay. Thyroid meds have to work for you. They have to. Like I don't like taking meds, right? I never like taking meds, but I'm dependent on it, right? So there has to be something there. Now, you would be a great case to work with one-on-one, right? In the sense of there's something else going on there. You might have a gut issue that's affecting absorption of the thyroid meds. Maybe your cortisol is really dysregulated. Maybe there's some sex hormone issues. There's something else there that is affecting this. And you have to. You have to find the right meds. Again, if I walked through everything you've gone through and how you've done it, I could identify it. I have no question about it. I could identify it. Now, I do get a lot of questions about people working one-on-one with me. There is a wait list for that, but the primary way to work with me is through my membership group. And from there, once one-on-one coaching opens, it's the members that kind of get priority over that. And then if there are any more openings, anyone else can do that. But let me go ahead. Let me think of some scenarios, right, guys? I'm reading these questions as I'm recording this. So I don't want to be pre-prepared. I want to share with you guys my knowledge, what I know, what I've read right there with you. So I think one of the first things, and I'm about to do a video on this, so stay tuned for this. I think one really great way is to start dry brushing if you are not dry brushing. Dry brushing is a really great way to move fluid, especially your lymphatic system. You have to make sure you're pumping your termini, making sure that it's emptying out correctly. But dry brushing can take 5 minutes, 10 minutes if you're very, very slow. And it can make a significant difference in fluid movement and retention. Now, if your case is severe enough, I do recommend locally, but you can find them around your area, someone that does do lymphatic massage. They can do it manually or they can do it with a machine where they're moving the lymphatic system and moving that fluid. Now, you need to make sure that you're drinking enough water and water with minerals. That's what's really important. A lot of you guys are drinking lots and lots and lots of water, but you have filtered water, like reverse osmosis water, where you're missing these electrolytes, these minerals that get the water into the cell and make you actually well hydrated. Minerals are really, really, really important. I think that's 2-3 places that you can start rebounding, getting on a mini trampoline. And it's not just jumping on the trampoline, it's like going down until there's tension on the trampoline and coming back up and then doing that over and over again. I will have some of my clients do that jumping while they're watching TV or listening to something for 10 minutes. Getting that movement in, especially getting that muscle contraction, can be really, really beneficial. Again, to moving fluid, moving that lymphatic system can be really, really huge. Now, I will say this. Another thing that could be helpful, I am not set on just natural desiccated thyroid or just T4, T3. I think I've learned so much in over 10+ years of working with different types of people that what works for your body is going to be unique to you. So I'm going to talk about, there is a drug, Tyrosint, and you may have tried this, I don't know, but Tyrosint, a lot of people report doing really, really well on Tyrosint, and it is a T4 only medication. But one of the reasons why people report feeling really great on it is because Tyrosint has, depending on what you get, there's Tyrosint liquid and there's Tyrosint gel capsules, and that's all there is. The Tyrosint fluid gel capsule, no extra fillers, nothing. And the liquid is literally the drug, no extra fillers. What that means is that people have reported to absorb that much, much better. So people that might have gut issues and gut dysregulation or gut dysfunction do well on that because the absorption is a lot higher and it's a lot easier when taking that med. Now, if you still if you're having some liver gallbladder things going on, you might not be converting that as optimally. So I've also seen people add in a little bit of T3, something like a Cytomel along with that tyrosine. Of course, this is something to talk to your prescribing doctor about, but I think a really big area to look at is, did you try the med long enough? And I'll wrap up with this. So let me give you some scenarios where I've seen people who the meds just didn't work for. Okay. Let me give you some scenarios. One scenario is there is no linear conversion from one drug to the other. So doctors have to start at a dose. Like they get to pick the dose according to your labs and their experience with it, and then you have to increase it. So some issues I've seen in the past for why people were never, this med didn't work for them or they never got better is either their starting dose wasn't high enough or they just never were able to increase to where they needed to be. So meaning, when you get on a dose, you got to get on that dose and then you wait 4 to 6 weeks, and then you get a retest, and then you might have to increase again, and then retest and increase again. And what can happen is the doctor might be increasing very, very small. So you're months feeling like crap when maybe they should have increased, one dose to the next a little bit more. So it can make you feel like you're not getting better because you just haven't reached the dose for you. Another issue is that when there is digestive issues and gut microbiome issues, like lack of diversity or something going on there, what I have also seen is that people will need higher dosages than even what their doctor might think. And it's not because, oh my gosh, you need all these meds. It's because, again, you might not be absorbing it. And so a lot of doctors get a little bit, especially if it's T4, T3 combo, they might get a little nervous going this high with you when in actuality, you're not even fully possibly absorbing that. So that's another issue I see. I've seen people that the fillers in these meds, they are very small. But if someone has had sensitivities to gluten or sensitivity to dairy, I saw someone break out when they switched to Armour Thyroid because of the fillers that she was being exposed to. It's a little bit every day. She did not do well. It cleared up once, things like when she changed back to a synthetic form. And that was something she needed, right? Another thing, and I talked about the adrenals, another thing I have found, when I started working with people over 10 years ago, I was able to help them get into optimal levels of thyroid hormone and they would feel amazing. And then over the years, I kept seeing people would get to their thyroid hormone level and they did improve, but they weren't feeling amazing like the people years prior. And what I found is that that's when the adrenals HPA dysregulation comes into play. Found is that the reason why you get into these ranges and they might be in functional ranges, but you still don't feel great and you actually can't even increase your dose anymore or you'll feel like really bad. And what I had to do in the past is work with the different women where their HPA dysregulation is, take a pause on the thyroid hormone, not pause. No, I don't mean like stop taking it, like pause on like tweaking it or increasing or decreasing it. Just stay where they felt better with their prescribing doctor. And then what we'll do is we'll work on resetting the HPA axis, which can take 90 to 120 days. And then they feel so much better. And some of them didn't have to increase their dose, didn't have to tweak anything. Some did, but now they could handle tweaking that and increasing that. But like I said, when it comes to thyroid health, it's not post-thyroidectomy, healing after thyroidectomy. It's not going to be textbook for everyone. Everyone is different. So it'll be really important, your health history, your testing history, Are there any comorbidities? Like, are there extra things going on? And then addressing all of that, addressing your body as a whole, because you guys are like me that have had your thyroid removed. You deserve to feel well. You deserve to be well. You deserve to be on whatever thyroid med you need. You deserve to get whatever labs you need to help you heal and function well. And if that's not happening, then something has to change. And it usually begins with who you're seeing and if they're listening to you, if they've got the right information, if they're willing to work with you the right way. So I hope that helps, because there's so much more that can be going on there. But that's a great place to start. All right, guys, that's the wrap up of part 2 of our Healing After Thyroidectomy Q&A. I will see you guys for the next part. See you next time. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to leave a 5-star review. I love being able to see and read how this information is helping you on your health journey. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast. That way, when new episodes are live, you can have it automatically downloaded to wherever you listen to your podcast. The number one question I get asked is, how do I work with you? If you are interested in finding out more information about me and being a part of my community, go to my website, drrebeccawarren.com. That's dr.rebeccawarren.com. And you should be able to find the answer to your questions there, as well as checking out my Thyroid Inner Circle membership group, getting access to the free Thyroid Labs ebook that I have available for you, and so much more great information.